While the rest of Westeros tears itself apart, the Vale appears quiet. There are no marching armies, no burned castles, no open rebellion. But that calm is deceptive. Beneath it, the Vale comes closer to internal war than most readers realise. After the death of Jon Arryn, power in the Vale collapses inward. Authority becomes personal instead of institutional, and that creates space for conflict. On one side stands Peter Baelish, newly arrived, legally appointed, and deeply distrusted. On the other stand the Lords Declarant, the most powerful native houses of the Vale. This is not a clash of armies, it is a confrontation over legitimacy, and it nearly turns violent. Hello everyone, and welcome to Storyteller's Codex. Here we delve deep into the rich lore of the Lord of the Rings, a song of ice and fire, and the vast worlds beyond. On this channel, we blend the soothing power of cutting-edge technology with the timeless knowledge of dedicated storytellers. That's us, the voices behind the Codex. Settle in, relax, and enjoy. Jon Arryn's death creates a problem the Vale has never faced before. For decades, Jon Arryn ruled through consensus. The great houses accepted his authority because he embodied Vale tradition, restraint, stability, and predictability. When he dies, that balance disappears immediately. Lysa Arryn inherits his position, but she does not inherit his relationships. Instead of holding councils, she isolates herself in the Eyrie. Instead of ruling, she refuses to engage. Multiple characters comment on this isolation. The Vale Lords are not angry at first, they're confused. The Vale is being governed by absence. This matters because the Vale's political system depends on visibility. Lords expect to be heard. When they are not, suspicion replaces loyalty. Into this vacuum steps Littlefinger. Importantly, he does not seize power illegally. Lysa names him Lord Protector of the Vale, giving him authority on paper. That legality is the problem. The Lords Declarant cannot immediately oppose him without appearing rebellious. But they also recognise that Jon Arryn would never have allowed an outsider with no Vale ties to govern unchecked. This tension, lawful authority versus accepted authority, is what drives the conflict. The Lords Declarant are not minor bannermen. They represent the core of Vale power: House Royce, House Waynwood, House Redfort, and House Corbray. These families command men, castles, and long-standing loyalty. Most importantly, they share something Littlefinger lacks: generational legitimacy in the Vale. Bronze Yohn Royce in particular is treated as a moral and political anchor. Other lords defer to him, not because of rank alone, but because he represents continuity with the Vale's past. The unity of the Lords Declarant is unusual. Vale politics are normally cautious and fragmented. Here, multiple houses act together because they perceive a common threat. That threat is not just Littlefinger personally, it is the fear that Vale governance is being reshaped without Vale consent. This is why their opposition escalates quickly from concern to ultimatum. Lysa Arryn's death removes the last barrier to open confrontation. With Lysa gone, Littlefinger's position becomes both stronger and more suspicious. He is now ruling in the name of Robert Arryn, a sickly child easily influenced. The Lords Declarant accuse Littlefinger of manipulating Robin, ignoring Vale customs and ruling without proper consultation. These accusations are not abstract. They are based on observable behaviour, council meetings sidelined, decisions centralised, and traditional voices excluded. At this point, the threat of force becomes real. The Lords Declarant gather armed retainers. They make their demands publicly. This is the moment where the Vale could fracture into open conflict. This confrontation is the most dangerous situation Littlefinger has faced so far in the series. Unlike in King's Landing, he cannot rely on chaos or divided enemies. The Lords Declarant are united, armed, and acting within Vale tradition. They are not plotting in shadows, they are standing openly against him. From Elaine's point of view, we see Littlefinger calculating rapidly. He understands that bribery will not work here. Threats will only confirm their suspicions. He is for once constrained. This is why Littlefinger resorts to a structural solution rather than a trick. He reframes the conflict around succession and marriage, something the Vale Lords must take seriously. The key detail is that Littlefinger does not defeat the Lords Declarant. He survives them. That distinction matters, because it shows the limits of his power when faced with unified, legitimate opposition. Littlefinger escapes removal by reframing the entire conflict around succession. When confronted by the Lords Declarant, he does not argue about his competence or deny their accusations. Instead, he focuses on Robert Arryn and what will happen when Robin dies. This is not speculation. Everyone present understands that Robin's health is fragile. The question is not if succession will matter, but when. Littlefinger proposes a betrothal between Robert Arryn and a suitable Vale bride chosen with the approval of the Lords Declarant themselves. This is a critical move because it restores something they believe Littlefinger has taken away: participation. Marriage is not a distraction here, it is a constitutional solution. By anchoring his authority to Robin's future rather than his own position, Littlefinger gives the Lords Declarant a reason to delay action. Acting now would destabilise the very succession they claim to protect. This does not make Littlefinger trusted. It makes rebellion inconvenient. Among the Lords Declarant, one voice carries more weight than the others: Yohn Royce. The text makes this clear through behaviour rather than exposition. Other lords defer to him in council. When Royce speaks, the room listens. When he hesitates, others follow. Royce's importance comes from three things. First, lineage. House Royce predates the Arryns in the Vale. Their authority is not granted by the Eyrie. It survives independently of it. Second, reputation. Royce is known as a warrior and a traditionalist. He's not associated with intrigue, which makes his opposition to Littlefinger credible rather than self-serving. Third, legitimacy. If Royce commits to violence, the Vale follows. If he refuses, the Vale stalls. Littlefinger understands this immediately. His arguments are crafted to satisfy Royce specifically, not the coalition as a whole. He emphasises legality, succession, and delay, all values Royce respects. The near-civil war ends not because Littlefinger wins the room, but because he prevents Royce from giving the signal that would fracture the Vale. The confrontation between Littlefinger and the Lords Declarant meets every requirement for civil war except one: violence. Armed retainers are present, demands are issued publicly, authority is challenged directly. Had either side refused to compromise, bloodshed would have followed. The books emphasise how close this comes. Elaine notes the tension, the anger and the readiness of men to act. What prevents violence is not reconciliation, it is mutual recognition of cost. The Lords Declarant understand that removing Littlefinger by force risks destabilising the Vale permanently. Littlefinger understands that killing or arresting the Declarants would turn the Vale against him. This is how civil wars are often avoided in A Song of Ice and Fire, not through mercy but through calculation. On the surface, Littlefinger wins. He remains Lord Protector, he is not arrested, his authority continues. But the text makes it clear this is not a total victory. The Lords Declarant remain intact. They are not dispersed, imprisoned or neutralised. Their cooperation is conditional, not loyal. Littlefinger's power in the Vale becomes supervised. He must consult. He must compromise. He must delay plans that require unilateral control. Most importantly, he is now operating under scrutiny. The Vale Lords are watching him closely, especially in matters involving Robin and Elaine. This directly limits Littlefinger's freedom. In King's Landing, chaos protected him. In the Vale, stability constrains him. The result is a political stalemate rather than domination. By the end of A Feast for Crows, the Vale remains untouched by war, its armies are intact, its castles are full, its fields are unburned. This is not accidental. The unresolved tension between Littlefinger and the Lords Declarant keeps the Vale suspended between action and restraint. No faction can move without triggering internal conflict. This makes the Vale uniquely dangerous going forward. When it finally commits, whether under Littlefinger, the Lords Declarant, or someone else entirely, it will do so with overwhelming force. The civil war that almost happened matters because it explains why the Vale has waited so long, and why its eventual involvement will reshape the balance of power. George R.R. Martin does not waste chapters on avoided wars. He uses them to show how power really works when violence is postponed rather than unleashed. If you are interested in The Lord of the Rings or A Song of Ice and Fire, click one of the links on the screen to dive deeper into the lore. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you next time.